You know security is hard, so let's assume we're probably gonna get pwned by noon. But if we all start to get the basics right, we might not fully get pwned until tonight.
There we go.
There you go.
Oh, goodness. So sorry if none of that was showing. This is what it was looking like when I was talking through it. Sorry about that. But that brings it, you're still seeing me fine? That brings us to here. So thanks, Paul. And Dan, you want to tell the folks about you and FlexTrack?
Yeah, so Dan DeCloss, founder and president of FlexTrack. It's a cybersecurity reporting and tracking platform to help keep a bird's eye view of your security progress over time and help ease the burden of reporting, generating reports for whatever kind of audit or pen test that you might be doing, as well as helping your clients manage all of their issues and really start to show progress over time. But been in security a long time. I feel ancient compared to to some, but a young soul, right? Have my background in penetration testing, and so I just love being able to share what I know, as little as it may be, to help anybody else that might need it. So.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Paul and Dan, for being here. And Dan, I'm definitely feeling old too, because I think I saw something on my Twitter feed mentioning that dial-up internet turned 30 or something today. And
oh, geez.
I don't even know if everybody on this webinar would even know what that is, but we'll talk about that on a different webinar. Okay, so real quick, last time, if you missed part one, what we went over are some software and hardware options you can purchase to build yourself a Pentest Lab for around $500. And in fact, speaking of part one, just because I'm a dork and I like polls, let me go ahead and launch this poll, which asks, did you see part one of the series? Your choices are yes, nope, no, and I am ashamed, no, and you can't make me, and no, but I will not sleep or eat until I do. And it looks like, oh, that's right, you can't see the results, but 90% of people have already seen part one, and one person says they're not gonna sleep or eat until they do. Okay, well, that's good. That's fantastic. And like I said, it's on YouTube. So if you see this later and you're like, what are these guys talking about? You can get caught back up. All right. So here were just a couple things again to put together a grocery list to go after a lab. Here's one for a little over $500. That was my first ever NUC kit. So the kit costs you about $337. You get 16 gigs of memory. You get a larger hard drive. And there's your price tag. So there's one option. Another one we showed was the last NUC that I bought that rang in at about a little over $400. And I like that because it came with a Win 10 Pro license. And right now it's just running one Windows 10 VM and one Kali VM. So it's kind of my go-to portable pen test rig. So not a huge investment for a pretty sweet little box. And then someday down here, I'll get a little more hard drive space because 128 gig is not a lot. All right, and then we also talked through if you went the VMware route as the software to put on the bare metal of that box. We provided some links and some how-tos that we go into more detail in part one, but that help you get all the pieces in place so that you're actually ready to spin up VMs, which is what we'll primarily be focusing on in this webinar. So let's look at getting a Windows Server and Active Directory environment going. I just, as kind of a happy medium, just chose Windows Server 2012, which if you just Google, Windows Server 2012 download, you'll be taken top link, I think, to this guy right here. And then I just downloaded the virtual ISO, kind of the virtual CD. And then right within your virtualization software, you can just open up your, click on your storage, open up your data store browser, and then just upload that ISO, which is what I've got highlighted here on the right, to your storage. And then I'm going to show you really quick. I'm just going to flip over to my lab. You guys are still seeing this okay?
Yep.
Okay, good. So here was the test DC that I recorded some videos of for this webinar. And once I get the settings opened up, I just came down here to the CD drive and just browsed to that ISO that I got from Microsoft. And also, I think my first movie clip shows this, but one little change I like to do on any new VM is go here under VM options, and under boot options, this is the delay kind of where you get to choose like hitting a keyboard interrupt, or if you want to change the boot order, that kind of stuff. I like to crank this up to like 10 seconds so that I have a little bit of time to choose, okay, do I want to escape and boot to ISO? Otherwise, I've just found sometimes it can be so quick that you miss it. So that might be a little setting you want to change. All right, so yeah, I think I show that here in this first video, but here's me booting my my fresh domain controller VM. Oh yeah, I do go into it. Here we go. So just to show it one more time, again, that's under VM options and then boot options, and then just crank that boot delay up to 10,000, which would be 10 seconds. And then this will greet us with the pretty Windows screen. And then for the most part, this is a next exercise. I don't think there's a whole lot of choices to make, period, except just making sure you choose a server with a GUI. Unless you're awesome with command line, I'm not so much. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick with the GUI version. And then you pick your hard drive and you're pretty much off and running. Just go get yourself a beverage and wait for that to finish. All right, and then once the DC comes up, you'll pick your super strong, awesome, gnarly 30-character password with complexity, right? Something like that, but yet make it easy to remember and hard for people to guess. And then I want to show you a couple of things I like to do with a fresh domain controller. So once I get logged in for the first time, maybe it's just a me thing, but Windows never seems to know what time zone I'm in. So I always make sure I fix that, because that can cause lots of weird issues that you'll have a hard time troubleshooting later if time zone is off between your DC and the clients that you're going to join to it. So I like to fix the time. And then I also like to get Windows updates going, and in a lab environment, I just like to turn it to automatic and just let it go. Especially because, there can be a lot of updates to get initially. And if you just hit install updates automatically and leave it at that, you'll come back in maybe 24, 48 hours and the thing will be fully patched, rather than, I've just done that in lieu of like sitting and staring at the screen going, run updates, wait for them to install, reboot, then check again, all that.
Hey, Brian, when you ship your the NUCs out to clients, is there a reason that you might adjust the time zone? If you're, East Coast, West Coast, is there a reason that you might do that?
Oh, that's a good question. I have not yet. Well, so if I was going to do a pen test and send things out in a different time zone, I don't know that I would be as concerned, because I wouldn't be relying so much on time to be perfect for things like authentication and all that. But actually, that would probably make sense to do that, because if you're doing different attacks and you're running tools and those are generating logs, then you'd want to be able to go back to the client later, right? And say, yep, at 4 o'clock, I ran this tool. And then otherwise you'd continually be doing, oh wait, no, it's what are we, 2 hours difference? Yeah, good point. And then the last one,
Brian, I don't know.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, and even, doing pen tests and generating payloads or things, you can get into kind of quirkiness. Like if you're like doing a timing attack, like say, hey, execute this payload at XYZ time, you might run into issues there. If you're generating a payload in a different time zone, and then deploying it to an environment that is in a different time zone, it may not fire as a result. So always things to kind of just keep in mind. It's kind of separate from this, but.
Yeah, no, good point. In fact, I think in that training we were at, I did exactly that, right? I had some scheduled task set to fire, but it was in, I don't know, Central, not Pacific. And I was like, man, it just must not be created right. Well, no, it was a problem between share and keyboard. So, all right. And then the last thing I do is install the VMware tools. That helps the display be a little bit smoother, and shared folders and some other features work better. So that's just right in that little actions menu in the upper right. And it's another wonderful exercise in click next, 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 and reboot. And then you'll be pretty much good to go. Okay, so once you're, I would recommend giving your DC a chance to either automatically or you going in and hitting update, 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 get all the patches on it. And then after that last reboot, when you bring it up like this, the server manager should be set to just start by default and be presented here. And then we can start walking through the steps of actually making the domain controller. Oh, that's right. But we want to make sure it's named appropriately before we start installing rules. So I'm going to go into the system properties here, and I'm going to give this a name of, Corp DC1 or Lab DC1, whatever you want to call it. I don't know if Windows is still as fussy as it used to be, but I'd recommend just getting your naming scheme set first, and I don't know, don't change it later. I just, why would you want weird issues later, right? All right, and then we'll fire up the roles and features wizard. And this has become very streamlined as well. So there's my DC. I'm going to choose that from the server pool. And I'll just choose to install AD domain services. It kind of includes all the dependencies for you. So we'll just click next and we'll let that go. And again, it ticks group policy management and some of these other things in the list. So taking the defaults should be fine unless you look through that list and you decide, yeah, I do want Telnet or TFTP or Win server, but I've always just taken the defaults. And we'll let that restart automatically if required, because why not? And there we go. And I was gonna show some of this live, but something tells me watching progress bars is not really invigorating. Maybe I'm wrong. All right, we get that.
How long does it, Brian? How long does it take from start to finish, right? To set this up after your updates come back the next day or a few hours later. If you were in a pinch for time, you want to get this going. How long would this take?
Those last steps I showed, maybe 15 minutes or so. In total, clicking all those options and then letting the updates or letting the features get installed. And then really the final part, I don't know if you saw right next to this little flag here, little warning box came up, to get our attention. And when you click on that, the final step is to promote the server to a domain controller. So this is where we get to be kind of fun and name this new forest whatever we want. So this could be project.7. This could be, for example, plex.track. It's your lab environment, so of course you got to make it fun. I'm going to name, in this demo, I'm naming mine 7minsec, but my one that we'll use going forward is based on Tommy Boy, so you'll see a few discrepancies there. And we have to provide a directory services restore password in case crap really hits the fan and we have to do some open heart AD surgery. So write that password, or don't write that password down, but save it somewhere. And then the last part is you will provide the NetBIOS name. When you do the Control-Delete screen and you see you're logging onto, corp/Brian or whatever, this is that name, the NetBIOS name. So I'll just call mine 7minsec. And you can move around the database files and choose where they're stored. But again, I just pick the defaults. And then you let this go. And I think this is maybe another, I don't know, it's going to be maybe another 10 minutes or so. If that, oh, and I wanted to call out here, definitely set a static IP on your domain controllers. I didn't, just because I had a DHCP reservation set for it. But I like how it just warns you, like, hey, you really oughta, you don't want this IP to change, so set a static. So, so do make sure you do that in a real prod environment. All right, cool. So we'll hit that. We're shutting down. And now, let me see here. Oh, is this? Oh, never mind. This did a repeat. And then let me just show you what it looks like on the client side. So in my lab, I spun up a Win10 client. And to join that guy to the domain, I'll just go into the system properties again and give it a name that makes sense, and then choose my new domain to join it to. So right down here in the domain and workgroup settings, I'll hit change. And I think this is, at this point, I've switched over to my Callahan domain based on Tommy Boy. So I'm going to call this CADTO2. And then I'm going to choose to join the Callahan domain. Or if it was my other domain, I would choose 7minsec. And then you've got to provide the domain administrator account, which is that password we set up when we were first configuring our server. And then that's it. It is joined and ready to be part of our Callahan network. Oh, for some reason, I think it's like I hit the right arrow key and then it repeats the movie. So let me try next. Okay, so now let me flip over. Let me know if you can still see me. I'm going to go into my Callahan domain controller. You guys still tracking with me?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. All right, and in the notes for this webinar, I'm gonna have all this spelled out. But what I've done in the documentation is put in some group policies that I think would be handy for you to consider putting in your lab to just make it more manageable and make it feel a little bit more like a real network. So I've got a group policy in here for turning on remote desktop, so that if you join a bunch of slave machines to the domain, you can quickly RDP into them and, you know, test things out and look at logs and just be able to get around a little easier. I've got one that enables WinRM, which will come into play in a future webinar as to why that's important. I find that my Windows 10 clients that I join to the new domain tend to fall asleep, and then all of a sudden I can't RDP into them because they're snoozing. So this GPO just manages the sleep settings a little bit and forbids them from going to sleep so that I can always get into them. So that's kind of a nice to have. And then from my experience out in the quote unquote real world, most clients disable the firewalls. So that's what this GPO does, and that's what I do in my network. So that'll walk you through those settings. And then this one here, maybe not real applicable for, you know, immediately in our next few webinars, but last week on the podcast, I talked about some settings I've been playing with to get better logging out of Windows, or turning your logging up to 11, so that I'm capturing things like things that people execute in PowerShell. You know, attackers and pen testers love to use PowerShell to, you know, launch tools and gain footholds and move around in the environment. And so I'm trying to explore now how I can better log boxes so that I can see that on my SIM, you know, or my logging box. So these 4 or 5, I think, are nice to haves and are fairly common in real world environments. And like I said, I'll have, when I get the video up and stuff, I'll have notes on what these settings all actually are, so you can recreate those. All right. And now let's look through installing Kali. But actually, Paul, Dan, anything I missed? Any comments, questions, things you've run across that you want to share?
Well, you know, I know you posted in the Slack channel a few times asking about automation. You know, if anybody was able to automate this whole thing, why wouldn't you just like take a snapshot once you get it configured, take a snapshot? What's the difference between automating this build or just taking snapshots?
Oh, good question. So I think there's at least a couple approaches. One, and I don't have it handy, but yeah, someone in Slack did give me some resources to like fully script the whole thing so that you could build the domain and tweak the settings and spin up slave machines and all that. I just haven't really looked into it. I do love, let me flip over to the lab. I do love the fact that with ESX and some of these other virtualization solutions, that you can just take a snapshot. My understanding on the Windows side, like when we download that ISO and we build a Windows VM, is that it's got, I don't know if it's like a 90-day timer on it or something like that, where even if I've spun up the new machine and get everything the way I like it and snapshot it, my understanding is that even 35 days later or so, if I revert back to the snapshot, it's still got its internal timer that's going to say, hey, this license is going to expire and we're going to start nagging you or disabling features or whatever. However, I think someone had mentioned on the last webinar that there was some scripts where I think you can extend that like a few more times to really get quite a long shelf life out of that server. But because I have a little bit of lab ADHD, I probably burn and rebuild this thing about every 60 days anyway. So I haven't really had the need to have it for like long periods of time.
I guess it's good for practice, especially if you're just getting into this, understanding and, making those mistakes. So that's good. What was the other thing? So automation, well, I can't remember now. Edit this part out, huh?
Nope, I'm not. I'm gonna leave it in and then leave like a 15-minute silence of us just at this slide and nothing. And I'll just be like,
Brian, my friend, thank you.
Yeah, I do what I can. Okay, let's see. So let's click through Kali, which I didn't show the the downloading of the Kali ISO. That's also pretty straightforward. Download Kali ISO or IS. That should take you to the Kali download screen, and you can download the ISO, or they have packages set for directly to deploy to VMware or VirtualBox. But I just kind of left off from the point of we've loaded the ISO, we're ready to go through the install. And one reason I wanted to show you this is that I've been kind of switching my installs lately, at least the last one I built, to be an encrypted VM. So I'll show you that when we get to it. But this, just like the Windows side, is mostly a click next, click OK, click yes, click continue kind of thing. There's not a whole lot of choices to make, except a few menus come up that don't by default take the selection that you're expecting. So you want to kind of proceed carefully, but you can go pretty quick too. So here's where normally I would just say use the entire disk guided just at the top there. But I'm going to use option 3 to set up an encrypted VM. And the reason I like to do that is if I'm going to deploy this box for an internal pen test and, let's just say somebody steals it, then I don't have to worry and stay up the next 2 weeks with no sleep going, oh my gosh, I wonder if they're going to get, the passwords that I collected and the sensitive data that I pulled down during the test. So I choose encryption and then just write the changes out to disk. And then what that is going to turn on, as we're going to see, is we're going to have to supply that password on boot every time. So you want to be a little bit mindful of that. And this erasing, which I skipped over, did take a while. I think it took almost an hour. So you want to be aware of that. And also, I realized as I did this video, I selected a pretty lean VM of 20 gigs. I would do 40 or 50 more, just to be safe. You don't want to be having to conserve on disk space. So don't take the 20 gigs they might suggest to you by default. Some of those tools and if you're downloading data and things during a pen test, you want to have plenty of disk space. All right, so here's the one place where you want to specify the drive. See how the default was enter device manually? You just want to make sure you choose the other selection for your drive, and then for the most part, it'll be next, continue reboot. And there we go, we're ready to start actually setting this up. Oh, here we go again. It's wanting to do a repeat performance. Okay, let's go to the next one. So here we go. Since our disk is encrypted, upon first boot, Callie's gonna wanna ask you for that password. And then once you provide it, it will actually boot up so you can log in. And then I just wanted to show you, kind of like with the Windows VM, I just wanted to show you a few things I like to do out of the box to, sort of get it more ready for deployment. And one of those first things is just put all the updates on the box. So that's the apt-get update command. That'll pull down all the new packages and updates for you. And then you will do an apt-get upgrade to actually install those things. This is again where we'd probably be here for about 30 minutes just watching these. So hope people don't mind that we're going at a pretty decent clip. Otherwise, we'd be here till tonight. So you get all the updates on, hit reboot, and then a couple other things I like to do are, and this comes right in kind of the Kali manual, they talk about getting yourself SSH set up so you can remotely manage the box. So that's what that apt-get install OpenSSH server command was. And then they also walk you through going through some steps to refresh the SSH keys on the box so that you're not using the ones that just come with the image that everybody's using. So that's what these steps are. All right. And then I'm going to just set up my SSH config here to allow me to just log in as root with just regular old username root and my password. In a real production environment, you'd probably want to do key-based authentication for the best security, but for the sake of my lab, I'm just going to allow root to just straight up log in over SSH. So that's what this little tweak is here. And then by default on Kali, SSH will not start after, it'll not survive a reboot. So these commands here, the systemctl commands, they turn on the SSH service, and then they enable it, they start it, and then well, first let's just see if it's running. Okay, there we go, it's running. And I think I don't know if there's one more command. Oh, I think those commands did it. They will now allow SSH to survive a reboot. And now we can just double check that I can log in from my my own machine. So we're sitting pretty there. Oh, yeah, there we go. No, we already saw that one. Let me see. I think there's one more. Oh, and then in fact, this question just came up in Slack today. Somebody said, how do you just out of the box? You just got a Kali box set up. You want to download a bunch of pen test tools. I'll just point you to one script that I built for that purpose, and it is the Kali Essentials shell script, which really just does a bunch of git clone commands to just pull down some of the tools that I really like to have in my kit.
Hey, Brian, what's the difference, the tools, the standard tools that come with Kali versus the one that you're pulling down? What's missing?
That's a good question. I think a lot of them are coming more as part of the regular Kali repositories. I'm finding that a tool I really like called Crack Map Exec. I don't know at which point it got baked into Kali, but I still continue to use the script mostly because in the past, and these issues may have ironed themselves out, but I would find that even the tools that are part of the regular Kali repository, you'd run your apt-get update and your apt-get upgrade, and for whatever reason, some of those go-to tools would not update to the latest. So I think this I might be a creature of habit more than anything else, but I kind of like the idea of like, this is a new box. I'm going to run this script, and then I know that my /opt folder is absolutely the latest and greatest. I'm not going to have some sort of weird phantom like, oh, this dependency didn't update because, you know, Kali repositories were jacked or something. So, yeah. And there's also another one. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, you're guaranteed to kind of have the latest code base for all those tools. If the repository from, you know, wherever, you know, apt would be pulling from hasn't been updated and there's new features and whatnot, you're guaranteed to have the latest code on the master branches of all those repositories.
Yeah. Okay, I got it. Oh, so this script is actually kicking off like the install scripts from the other projects. I was just thinking it was just, you know, a list of scripts that it doesn't install or they might already be there. I get it now. Yeah.
No, you know what though? You bring up two good points. One is that my script just does the getting. So some of these do have additional install scripts to run, like Empire does. A few of these other ones have, you know, more to do. I just get them all on the box. But on that note, and this came up in Slack this morning too, there's one called Pentest, the framework from Trusted Sec, I think. Here it is. So this one, if I'm not mistaken, kind of does what my script does, but like on steroids with like way more tools. And I think, and someone can correct me, I believe it does the pull down of a bunch of tools and then also does the installs, update everything. And then I think then it also allows you to just quickly update all your tools too, which is pretty cool. So I used it when it was pretty new and I found that it was great, but it had by default just downloaded so many things, and a lot of the tools I honestly didn't know what they were. So really this project sort of inspired my script, which is a bit more bare bones, but definitely check out PTF too. That might, you know, get you everything you want and more. All righty. Oh man, we tore through that. That's awesome. So just to recap everything we did, we downloaded the server 2012 ISO, built ourselves a, you know, base OS. We promoted it to a domain controller. We joined a bunch of clients to the domain, and we created some starter GPOs, which I'll document when I get the video up so that you can go through and select all those settings. And we installed Kali, and now we're really at we were talking before we went live here with Paul and Dan that really feel like we're at a good point now to sort of pivot into now using our Kali box to attack Active Directory and you know, sharpen some of our pen test skills. So yeah, that's where we were trying to get today. Now, let me see. I see there's quite an active chat. I don't see any questions in the Q&A, but I don't know if you guys have been looking at the chat at all, if there was any questions coming up that were for us. Let's see. Okay, looks like people are talking about installing on the NUC and using ESXi.
Yeah, and it looks like Brian had some trouble getting the NIC to install. He made a custom ISO. That's pretty good. Sweet.
Yeah, that's we've in DIY part 1. Apparently that issue is still around. So yeah, I think just kind of verify, you know, kind of back in part 1, verify that your hardware requirements, you know, actually do meet. If you don't want to have to go the route of creating custom ISOs and stuff, make sure that the hardware requirements on the ESXi page kind of meet the specs of the system that you're building out.
You know, I ordered, you know, one of mine came in at 5 something, you know, I think it was probably the same pre-built kit, the i3 8 gig of RAM and 120 gig SSD. And the other one I ordered was a little bit more, and I had 32 gigs with it. And when I booted it up, it just, the blue light flashing 3 times, right? So, you just Google it and it takes you to the page, and it's an issue with memory. So I took one of the DIMMs out, and then it booted up. So I just had one bad 16 gig DIMM.
Oh, okay.
So, a lot of people that may be new or watching this, that's just, if you see things like that, just Google it, and it usually kind of tell you what happened, then switch the modules around and stuff. So I'll probably use the 16 gig and then grab an 8 gig and put it in there. So I have 24, and then send that other one back, that other module back.
Yeah, definitely in my Googling, it seems like people have tried to make ESXi servers out of just about everything. I even had an old Mac Pro tower years ago that it was, kind of at the end of its life. And I was like, oh, let me just see if ESXi will install in here. And it did, which was kind of amazing. But, everywhere you look, people are like, this is absolutely not supported, but I got it to work with this custom module and this custom this and that. So yeah, you're right. I think whatever problems you have with hardware, there's likely somebody else out there who's tried it and finagled something to get it to work. All right, so if you want to talk about this and other stuff, we invite you to go to the 7-Minute Security Slack, which is just at 7ms.us/Slack, where we talk about all sorts of things. This, pen testing, blue teaming, careers, business, whatever you want to talk about. We invite you there. And I would like to then tease you towards the next webinars. Let me throw out this poll real quick, because the next multi-part series will be about network pen testing, now that we have a nice domain that we can blow up. So let me toss out this poll and get your feeling on, okay, yes, we did that. All right, let's see. Poll number 2 is just to understand your interest. That should pop up now. As we sort of pivot into network pen testing, what are people interested in seeing? So I've got, I think can you do a multiple selection? I tried to make it so you could pick several things, but abusing network broadcast traffic, password spraying, password cracking, Active Directory attacks. Oh goodness, okay. It looks like majority of the folks are really interested in password cracking and Active Directory attacks. That's great. I just as a tangent, Dan and I went with a couple other folks to this red team training, 2-day training week or so ago, put on by Peter Kim, who's the Hacker Playbook guy. And I just loved it. I got a podcast or 2 coming up about sort of sharing an overview of what we learned. But I went to his training, and then this week just went right into, or last week went into an internal pen test. So I got to use those skills directly, and I've learned a ton in the last few sleepless nights. So I'm very excited for future webinars here to show you some of that. So, so it seems like the big ones people want to see are the password cracking, spraying, Active Directory attacks, and privilege escalation. So this is good. It seems like people want to see a little bit of everything. So that is what we shall do. All right, but coming up next, though, we're going to take a little pause. We're going to talk about mousejacking, and Paul, do you want me to talk about it, or do you want to share a little bit of?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'll share. Yeah. So mousejacking, I don't know. We were doing our regular like Zoom one-on-one meetings and just talking about security and stuff. And Dan actually was in there too. And yeah, you showed me that mousejacking thing, and I heard about it 2 years ago. And since then, I was always used a wired keyboard and mouse. I didn't think too much of it until I saw you do that demo, and I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous. That's just too easy, And I looked into it, and I bought that crazy radio PA and hooked it up, and it was way too easy. And at first I got kind of worried about it, but after, you look into it more, and then it's just like, all right, well, you have to, I think, assess your, the actual, would an attack like that happen at your work environment? If you're on the, 20th floor of a building, it might not, but if you're in a restaurant and somebody walks in and starts attacking your point of sale system, and you actually have a keyboard and mouse, then you should probably swap that out with the Bluetooth. But but yeah, it's just fun, and what I've seen on it on online is pretty interesting. And in this webinar, I'm going to show you a little bit more what I haven't seen online. So yeah, it should be good.
Yeah, and if people want to, just in the meantime, kind of familiarize themselves with what we're talking about a little bit more, I think it's just mousejack.com that'll tell you a little bit more about what the attack is. They've got a nice video showing this young lady here walking into an office and using a little USB device to inject keystrokes over the air, inject commands into wireless keyboards and mice, such that, well, I mean, really the sky's the limit, right? It's like you've pushed the person aside and you're at their keyboard. So, download and install payloads, I heard a story from a pen tester who told me he was able to take over an Active Directory environment at the beginning of a pen test job, because he sat outside the office, sent the commands to add a command line, add a new user to Active Directory, and promote that user to domain admin, and it worked. And so in minutes he had godlike access over the whole network. So it is really something that, yeah, Dan and Paul and I have gotten very excited about, and Paul's done some more research. So I'm really excited to hear more about that on Tuesday, April 2nd at 12. So you can you can hit the webinars link here, and then we've got let's see, where is it? Here's our one from today, and then Mousejacking. Here's the sign up link right here, which apparently I don't know how to format Markdown, but I think you get the idea. I think that should go to the right place. Okay, it does. The link looks ugly, but it works. Let's see. That's it, man. We flew through that. That's good. I was a little concerned with all the movies and stuff I had that we'd be an hour plus. So sorry if that was a rigorous pace, but I want to be respectful of your time and not go over an hour for sure. So just to close out with a few shameless plugs, we already talked about the webinars, but if you're in the Minnesota area, or even if you're not, I invite you to the next 7MS user group meeting coming up on Monday, April 22nd. And that has got, I don't have the sign up links, I don't think yet here, but you can also attend virtually via Zoom webinar. So if you're not in the area, or you just don't want to get out because there's probably going to be another snowpocalypse, you can enjoy from the comfort of your couch. And then keep an eye here for more webinars we're working on. I think we're going to do some web-based discussion and pen testing ones with Dan that we're looking to get scheduled. So hoping to fill the calendar out and have one per month, ideally, if not more. So let's see. I think that's it. Paul, Dan, anything we missed? Anything you want to tell the folks about? And I'll look at the webinar chat, make sure there's nothing else people wanted to talk about.
No, I'm good. I don't have anything.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, but we're always available. Now the fun begins, right? You've got your environment set up, so now you can just start kind of tinkering around and trying all the different exploits you see out there from different attack techniques and stuff. So start populating your environment with different usernames and all that stuff, and start seeing how to actually apply some of those techniques.
Gosh, Dan, thank you for saying that. Since we do have, unless everybody's, no, it looks like some people are still on. I totally forgot. Let me just show you something real quick that I skipped over. You still seeing my DC here?
Yep.
In my lab? Okay. I've got again, on my BPatty site, if you go under pen testing how-tos and go to lab setup, I've got a couple files here. One is a CSV file full of users, just test users with, a lot of them have weak passwords, and then a script to import those users into your environment. So if you take a look at the CSV, it just looks like a bunch of gobbledygook. It's just comma separated information. But the only thing you would really have to do is replace the domain name here. Like mine is for Callahan Auto, because that's my domain name. You would just need to replace that with whatever you called your domain. So you could just do a replace and just say Callahan Auto, for FlexTrack for the win, replace all, and there we go. See, so we've got all the users set to import correctly with the right domain name. And then I've just got this little script here that we can open up with PowerShell right there. And I've got in this script, what I did just to make it a little easier on myself is I import these all to just a OU called bulk users. Just because I was having trouble importing them, and I like to be able to just delete them all and then re-import them all. So all that really involves you doing from your standpoint is just making a new OU here. You just right click, new OU, name it bulk users. That's where they'll all get imported to. And then also just make sure your whoops, oh, don't want to do that. Make sure your domain name matches. Let's see, where did it go? Matches what you actually have. So, you know, Callahan Auto was mine. You would call yours FlexTrack or whatever you want to call it. And then, oops, I'm just going to open that guy up and run it. And then it should just start screaming away. Nope, it didn't. Oh, because oh, here we go. I got to be running the script from where the script lives. And there we go. Look at them come flying in. So it's kind of fun. Run that script. You'll end up with about 5,000 or so users in your AD. And then that'll play into future webinars where we'll do some password cracking, because it's more fun to have a lot of users to do password cracking against. So if you're kind of playing along at home and you want to get ready for the next, diving into pen testing, yeah, do this, because then we're going to dump these users and their hashes out of Active Directory and then crack them with Hashcat, which is giddy, just fun times. So cool. Thanks for bringing that up, Dan. Sorry to sidetrack us, but I meant to show that. So.
Oh, no. Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you have that script, because I know that's kind of the next step, right? It's kind of now having a way to simulate users on the domain, and then you can start to kind of enumerate groups and
yeah,
do some of those techniques for pivoting and testing out exploits and stuff like that. So cool. That's very, very handy.
Right on. Well, Dan and Paul, thanks again for co-hosting here, and thank you all of you. I don't see anything in the QA or anything in the chat, so let's give everybody 8 minutes of their day back. And thanks for joining. See you on Slack, and let us know what other topics you'd like us to cover. We love doing this and want it to be educational and informative and hopefully fun. So let us know what you'd like to see, and we'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. See you, everybody.
All right, have a good one.
All right. Bye.